The Chris Evans Breakfast Show with Sky.
So why don't you explain to people what it's about and where it came from? Where does this show come from?
So I co-wrote this with a guy called Tim Crouch, who's a rather brilliant playwright, and we both were interested in working together. He's from Bognor Regis, and he wanted to celebrate his childhood there, and his father still lives there. And he said, the thing is that I'm obsessed with Bognor Regis. He said, my brother lives in Gothenburg, but there's a webcam that looks down on Bognor Beach, and my brother occasionally logs on to the webcam looking at Bognor Beach. I said, well, what does he want to see? And he said, well, I occasionally go down there and wave at him. I went, all right, that's the beginning of a show, OK. And he said, the other thing is coach drivers who just stand by their coaches and don't really engage with the thing their passengers are going to see. Right. He says, I like that sort of vibe. And I said, did you want to write this with me? And I went, yeah, definitely, yeah. And we went to Bognor. He took me on a tour of Bognor. And Bognor's, kind of all seaside is melancholy, I suppose. But I suppose Bognor, what was great is that he had some inside knowledge there. And we decided to sort of celebrate Bognor. And then he said, well, maybe you should play a coach driver. And gradually the show emerged from that, really. And it felt like a good format because, in fact, weirdly, it felt like a format you couldn't believe hadn't been done before, which is that you got different groups of people going to a different place each week. So you get a different group of people with their different attitudes going to a different part of the UK every week.
That if you are lonely, you are 29% more likely to die. When they do mortality research, it's one of the easiest pieces of research you can ever conduct, because what you do is you go and see somebody and then you come back and see them a few years later, and it's either a tick or a cross. And what they discovered is that people who are lonely are 29% more likely to not be alive anymore. And you put that together with one of the longest studies ever conducted at Harvard since 1939, an 80-year study, and they looked at the people who are healthier, happier and live longer. And the people who are healthier and happier and live longer, it doesn't matter how much you smoke, doesn't matter how much you exercise, doesn't matter so much what you eat. The most important thing, the clearest indicator of a long, happy, healthy life is friends, it's relationships, it's the opposite of loneliness. And when you hear that stuff, we all know friends matter. We all know our family matters. But when you know that, when you've got the science in front of you and there you are and you haven't been in touch with your old friend for a while, you pick up the phone and you go see somebody. You make that effort and it's worth doing.
What kind of things do you do for these people that you can talk about? What are their issues? What are their challenges? And how do you help them?
The way I'd probably liken it is if you think of, say, a physical trainer that's going to get you physically fit, they guide you in when you say, this is what I want to do, like run the London Marathon, and they train you into that, and then they monitor, encourage you, and so on. I'd say I'm doing the equivalent. You're sort of mental coaching. You're saying, what is it you want to do with your life? How do you want to feel? What do you want to be experiencing? What thoughts do you want? And then you coach them with that. So it's them doing the work, but me being this catalyst behind it and guiding them. Yeah, the difficulty is when you do this kind of work is, and others can have a recipe. I don't have a recipe. So the way I would function is to see the person in front of me and see what is it they're offering or what is it they want. So sometimes it can be about self-esteem, self-confidence. Other times it can be very specific, like when I'm in the big arena, I can't focus. So how do I keep focus in the middle of an Olympic competition?
So, for example, what would you say where that challenge is concerned?
We have to see first, is it realistic what they're asking? So, for example, if somebody says, I want to be able to focus for a competition where I'm on a pitch, say, for an hour and a half, that's unrealistic. So you have to say, well, the first thing is don't try and focus for an hour and a half because the mind doesn't work that way. The rules are defocuses all the time. Your job is to refocus the mind, and we'll show you how to do that for your particular mind.
Did you get to meet Dolly?
Do you know, I didn't, because I didn't open the show. I was meant to open the show and then fell over, which anyone that knows me well is not at all shocked that I did that.
Did you fall over a lot?
Well, apparently, I'm just clumsy. I think I had all the school bags. I was running up the stairs. I was late for school run. And I just stacked it.
So you can't be in a rush. That's the thing. You don't want to live your life in a rush, do you?
I'm always rushing.
So how many bags? What were in the bags?
Well,
why aren't the kids carrying the bags?
I know, because they're lazy and they're boys. They're teenagers.
I go and pick my kids up from school. They go to give me the bags. It's like, no, I'm not a mule. I'm a dad. All right, carry your own bags home.
To do. I was getting bags out of the car, putting bags in. My 15-year-old. Yeah. Is huge, which means his sports bag is huge.
Yeah, and you're not huge.
It's bigger than me. His cricket bag is bigger than me.
Why's he giving it to you? Why'd you accept it from him?
Oh, because he's my baby.
Yeah, I know. Well, he's not, though, is he?
He's
That's
my
the problem.
baby.
So did you fall over? Did you fall up the stairs or down the
I
stairs?
fell up, yeah.
See, falling up the stairs, that's a thing and a half, isn't it?
And slashed my chin on the stairs, and I ended up going straight to hospital. And
What kind of
having 10
stairs do you have?
stitches.
Are they barbed wire stairs? What
No,
are they?
but they're cement. You know, like the square,
Oh,
like
they're really cool.
townhousey. They're like cool stairs. Never have cool stairs. Always round off the edge.
Did you do 8 shows a week?
Yes, I do all 8 shows
Do you?
a week. Yeah.
Oh, my giddy aunt. And what's it like? So you get Saturday night is your last night, and then you get Sunday off?
I get Sunday
Okay.
off.
So Saturday night, do you go out with the rest of the gang sometimes?
Yeah, well, we do go out, but you know what it's like with kids. I mean, Sunday morning, sport morning.
Oh, of course it is.
I'm on the rugby pitch for like 4 hours.
Taxi duty.
Yeah, I'm there, and because Jamie works a lot of a weekend
Yeah, he
because
does.
he does the football.
That's convenient.
Yeah, conveniently, mind you. I think he'd quite like to be watching them, bless him. But because he's at the football, I'm sort of like holding the fort on football and
Yeah,
rugby. I've got one that plays football, one that plays rugby. So I spend most of my Sunday freezing cold watching sport, and I don't even like sport that much.
It is cold. Watching kids is cold work, isn't it?
God, there's nothing colder, is there? Especially like
It
November.
really is.
And when you've slightly got the weather wrong because you're rushing and you're so busy about getting to there on time,
Yeah.
then you forget your heavy coat.
Yeah.
And because you're not moving, are you?
And my older one doesn't even appreciate it. He's like, "Why are you here?" Excuse me.
and then
what
you
do you mean? Why am I here?
And then,
'Cause it's not right. I'm magnetized to somebody that don't feel it. Love paradise. She's never gonna need it. But it's just the world keeps the moon in the sky. She keeps me high.
so Bosh was the first book. Bish Bash Bosh is the second book.
Yeah.
Bit of an issue with the third title.
I know. Got any ideas?
No, but we can come up with some. 8722. Come up with the title of the Bosh Boys'
The next
third
book.
book.
You've gone early on the bish.
I know.
It's true, actually.
Yeah. We should have saved it. We should have saved it for the next book.
Just in Bosh Bosh.
We had to call this book Bish Bash Bosh.
Why?
and
Why?
we-
Why?
Because it's just we couldn't call it anything else, and someone else might have jumped us.
Yeah,
and picked
someone
us
else
for-
What if you've got Bosh and Bash Bosh out? Someone
Bash
else is
Bosh.
going to publish Bish Bash Bosh?
Maybe.
How very dare they?
Not these days. They're all seduced by their screens. They'll come up with anything original or even sort of perfunctory. So Bosh 2.
I mean, it lends itself to loads of things, doesn't
Posh
it?
Bosh?
Like
Yeah.
Bosh
Posh
Burgers,
Bosh.
Bosh Bombay,
Yeah, Bosh
Baby
Bombay.
Bosh. We could do a baby cookbook.
What about Bish Bash Posh?
Bish Bash Posh could be good.
What about that?
Yeah, like
or a nonsense
truffle
book?
oils and
Posh
Bish
Bosh.
Bash Tosh?
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
Boshier, Bashier.
Bosh Nosh.
Bosh.
There you
Bosh
go.
is good.
Oh, Bosh.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be saying any of these out. Look at your face. It's like,
get your pen
he's like,
out.
these are really good. Please stop saying them out loud on the radio. Tell us what you're doing with Gary Lineker. Come on.
Oh, well, Gary Lineker...
How did it start? How did it-
I went to... like you, I don't have a phone, but, famously I don't. And I went to Portugal last year as part of the testing out retirement thing. And so when I came back, there was all these messages on Twitter, because I'm on Twitter. There was all these messages... of direct messages when friends get in touch, about 15 of them. And it said, the last one said, "Oh, I guess that's a no then. Gary Lineker." No, I know Gary Lineker. So I spun back.
Hang on, Gary, come on.
I know, and on the first day I've been away, he'd said, "Look, I've been asked to do a podcast. I don't know anything about them, but I don't want to do it with another footballer because that's what I do on TV. Do you want to do it with us?" And by the last one he'd said, because he hadn't heard from me, I think that's enough, I got straight in touch, and I said, "I've been asked to do them as well, but there's no money in these things." Turns out I didn't know what I was talking about. The other thing, the other direct messages I had, I promise I'm not doing this to say, "Oh, I'm hot and busy." I'd rather be doing playing cards into a top hat, was from Will McDonald, who was the producer on TFI Friday. Will gets in touch. "Dan, I'm doing this game show for Channel 5. Would you be one of the captains?" "Will, I'm 61. Would captain on a game show?"
trying to retire.
No, I said, "I've been around that rodeo." And he said, "Well, it's good, but American company owns it, and we've got a live bar and a live band on it. Where'd you get that idea from?" So I said, "I don't think so, Will." Wendy says to me, "Ooh, Laurence Olivier, when did you get $2,000 to go and work with your friend for 2 weeks?" That's on Channel 5 at the minute, on Friday nights. and the Lineker thing and the tours, and yet if I walked out of here and got run over by a bus, it would be soap powder Daz man dies.
Or refuses to die.
That's what it is, yeah. Chris, man who used to work with Chris Evans found in gutter. That, mind you, we're always a heartbeat away from that headline, aren't we?
Yeah, again. All right. Do you like it?
Yeah, I watch it.
Okay, so where will you be watching on Monday?
I will be with my children on holiday, so I won't be watching.
Okay, and how much of the final series have you seen?
I haven't seen any of it.
Do you know what happens in the end?
Yeah.
No, I know it's not just because you're in it, but don't they like record multiple endings and not even tell the actors? Does that happen?
No, we know.
All right. So what might happen?
What might happen?
So you actually know what? So like there are tens, maybe hundreds.
I'm really
of,
scared now.
Maybe there are hundreds of millions of people in the world want to know what happens, and you know what happens. Ooh,
yeah.
What does that mean? Master, you're a brilliant commentator. Just to tell you what Lena did with her hands.
That was quite as strange. It was almost in prayer position, but the fingers were wiggling, and then the hands from prayer position at sort of chin height went up to above forehead height and down with fingers wiggling all the time while staring at you without blinking. So what was that?
What did that mean? What you just did?
It was sort of an internal, like I know.
Oh, okay.
Okay, what did you learn via 24 that you can take skill-wise to the rest of your life?
My biggest problem was that if you get in a fight, now I know how to miss you by about ½ an inch. So it's not very helpful. It's like square up with someone in a bar and you throw 3 fights and they're like, you didn't hit me.
But it also gave you stability, didn't it? And it gave you something to judge the rest of your life by. And that was really helpful, I would imagine.
Well, I remember there's a picture of me and my daughter on the set in the first season, and she was 11 or 12. And then in the final season, there's a picture of her graduating from New York University. So those 2 pictures side by side really put into perspective how long I had done that show.
The Chris Evans Breakfast Show with Sky.